Hello, today I'm going to teach you how to make shoo fly pie, an authentic Amish recipe. Shall we begin? Okay, so the first thing you do, shoo fly pie is two parts, and we're going to cheat today. I'm using a 9-inch frozen crust that I defrosted earlier today. There's two parts to it, the crumb and the molasses mixture. So we always start with the molasses mixture. What I do first, I put my water on to boil because I will need that for the molasses mixture. I'm sorry, we're going to start with the crumb mixture. So what I have here is 3/4 of a cup of all-purpose flour, 1/2 a cup of packed brown sugar, 2 tablespoons of butter cut up. They do call for molasses, but they do call for shortening, but I think that butter is healthier than shortening, so I don't use that. Some recipes don't call for cinnamon. I like to put a little bit of cinnamon in for flavor. Not a whole lot, just a little sprinkle for your cinnamon. And 1/8 of a teaspoon of sugar. I'm sorry, 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. And then you mix this like any other pie crust. So I use a fork. I find that it makes it easier to break it up and to incorporate it. Once I start to get it mixed up, sometimes I just use my hands. I hear my water is just about to boil. So I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to put the pie crust aside for just a minute to let that butter soften a little bit, and I'm going to come back to it. Since my water's boiling, I want to use it right away. So for my molasses mixture, I'm going to take 1 egg that I have here and beat it. And you can use the same fork because these things are going to be mixed together, so it doesn't matter if it crosses over. So to beat your egg, you simply just whisk it in there like that until you get a nice creamy yellow color. Okay? To that egg, I'm going to add 1/2 cup of molasses. Any kind of molasses works well. Molasses is very good for you. It's very high in iron. So the molasses I need is 1/2 cup of molasses. So I'm going to use this because it's the same cup I'm going to use my boiling water in, and it'll help clean out the glass. So pour in 1/2 cup of molasses. I love this measuring cup. It's very old. Belonged to my grandmother. But it's got these measurements on the outside. It makes it very easy to measure. So I pour my 1/2 cup of molasses into my beaten egg. And you can mix that up. And I have my little scraper here. Because molasses is very, very sticky, so you don't want to leave any behind. You don't want to be wasteful. So we're going to scrape that down. Okay. And then to this, I'm going to add my 3/4 a cup of boiling water. So that's going to be to this measure here with hot water. My water just came to a boil. And right there is 3/4 of a cup. And I just do a little stir to get the hot molasses off the bottom. You want to be careful not to burn yourself. And then I'm just going to pour it into my mixture. I like to do double duty, so I'm cleaning off my thing. See how nice it comes out? Then you don't have to do much in the way of scrubbing. You can pop it right in the dishwasher. Alright, so I need to stir right away so I don't cook that egg and end up with scrambled eggs in my pie. So you can do what's tempering. You can add it in slowly so the egg doesn't cook. But I usually don't have a problem with it. Okay, so far I put in here 1/2 cup of molasses, 3/4 of a cup of boiling water, 1 well-beaten egg, and next I'm going to add 1.5 teaspoons of baking soda. Ordinary baking soda will do. 1. And a half. Now I clean up as I go along, so I put my stuff right in this thing. Alright, so I'm going to whisk that up. And it's going to have this nice creamy brown color that you can see. Sorry. Alright, so I'm going to put that aside, let that rest for a minute. I'm going to go back to my crust. As you know, I hadn't finished mixing it. And this time I'm just going to add, I'm going to crumble it with my fingers. It's a lot easier to break up butter or shortening or Crisco or whatever you choose to use by using your hands to make the crumb mixture. And you just simply get in there and squeeze through it. Squeeze the powder through the flour. As I said, I prefer butter. I think it is healthier for you. It's closer to nature. I'm not a big fan of shortening. I don't think it's very good for your heart. You know, fat is fat, but I just think that butter is closer to nature. So I tend to use butter when I cook. So again, this mixture in here that I'm crumbling was 3/4 cup of flour, 1/2 cup of firmly packed brown sugar. You can add cinnamon, cloves, nutmeg, and ginger. I just tend to add a little bit of cinnamon for flavor, and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Okay, and 2 tablespoons of butter or of shortening. So you can also do this in your food processor, but I like to do as much as I can by hand so that I can burn calories, quite honestly. So Thanksgiving is a couple days away, so this is one of the things I'm making for Thanksgiving. I normally wouldn't make this, trying to lose weight, so this isn't exactly a low-calorie thing. But what I'll do is, on a day that I might have this, I'll put some extra time in on the bicycle, or I'll cut back on something else, have a lighter lunch, maybe just a salad for lunch, and that way I won't gain weight. Okay, so that looks good. So once that's mixed, you're going to have a kind of a fine crumbly mixture with little bits of butter stuck to the flour. Okay, I'm going to clean my hand off real quick. This is such a simple recipe. So you want to heat your oven at 450 for the first 10 minutes. So I'm going to turn my oven on to 450 degrees. And I'm just going to start it for 10 minutes. That's all. So I'm going to set my timer for 10. I'm going to set it for 11 because I need to put my pie together first. All right, so this is how you put your pie together. You bring your pie crust shell over. Okay. And the first thing I'm going to do is put a little bit of my molasses on the bottom. Okay, and then I'm going to alternate with a layer of crumbs. And it really doesn't matter, you can just kind of eyeball what you're doing. The only thing is you want to save some crumbs for the top so it looks pretty. And I'm going to put another layer of molasses in. And you'll see when you do this that it doesn't quite go down. It kind of, the flour and sugar rise to the surface, and that's perfectly fine. That's what's supposed to happen. Okay, so then I'm going to add, I use about a handful, okay, another handful of my dry ingredients, okay, and I'm going to leave about 1/3 of what I started with in the bowl. So it's usually like thirds, okay? And then I'm going to pour the rest of the molasses mixture on top. Okay, and if you end up with a lot of flour on the top and you still have a lot of flour, I take a little bit of my fork and I kind of mix it in, okay, so it gets in there. Because you don't want it too runny, but you don't want to have too much flour on the top. But you'll find that it'll sink to the bottom. Okay, and then I'm just going to sprinkle the rest of this on top, like this. And this is going to go in a 450-degree oven for 10 minutes. And then after 10 minutes, I'm going to lower the temperature to 350 for 20 minutes. Okay? So I'm going to stop for now, bake it, and I will show you a picture when I'm done. Dessert, they were absolutely delicious. And you can see when you look and see. So I'm going to give you the recipe for that shoo fly pie that I just made. 3/4 of a cup of flour, 1/2 cup of brown sugar, 2 tablespoons of butter, dash of salt, dash of cinnamon. That's your crumb mixture. Your liquid measure is your liquid ingredients are 1/2 cup of molasses, 3/4 of a cup of boiling water, 1.5 teaspoons of baking soda, and 1 egg. You're going to mix those. You use 1 frozen pie crust to frost it, and you're just going to layer it with alternating layers. You're going to bake for 450 for 10 minutes, and then 350 for 30 minutes, and you'll be left with a delicious pie to serve to your guests and friends. Enjoy!